session on Monday, October 9th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Bloomington Public School parents and caregivers, students, staff, and Bloomington residents who registered by the noon deadline today will have the opportunity to address the school board in order of their registration. We also have a few rollovers from our September meeting that we're put at the beginning. There are currently 32 people registered, and we will do our best to get through as many speakers as possible within the 45-minute listening session time frame. We have 2 microphones. We'll just call this one microphone A, that one microphone B. The chair will announce the first 2 speakers to line up to each microphone. After the first speaker has concluded, the chair will call the next speaker that is on deck, and this process will continue through the evening. Please be prepared to come to the open microphone when your name is called, and only the person who is registered is allowed to speak in their time slot. Each speaker is allotted 2 minutes. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments. When your time concludes, please return to the audience so the next speaker can begin in a timely fashion. Audience members shall remain respectful to the speaker so they can finish their comments within their allotted time. As stated in policy, the school board does not respond at listening sessions. If needed, matters are referred to administration. The listening session will conclude no later than 6:45 p.m. If there are registered speakers that did not have the opportunity to address the board, they will have the opportunity to address the board at the November listening session, and I will explain more about that process in my conclusion. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So speaker number 1 at this microphone will be Jane Freeman. Speaker number 2 at this microphone will be Alan Redding. And just so that people know who's next up, Sarah Steinbach will be number 3, and Andrew Thule will be number 4. So Jane Freeman, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jane Freeman. Thanks so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm a former Bloomington Public Schools special ed.
Jane, we're going to have you stop for a second. The microphone's not on, so we're going to make sure.
I've got a really good voice.
It's good enough to get into the report.
Yeah, you looked it up.
I think I can. Go ahead, Jane. Let's see if we can hear you now.
All right, I got to crouch down then. Hi, my name is Jane Freeman. Thanks so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm a former Bloomington Public Schools special ed teacher.
Still microphone. Still. You just hold it. Hold the microphone.
Hold it.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Retired school social worker and parent of 2 daughters who graduated from Bloomington Public Schools. I want to talk about the need for children to experience a sense of belonging and acceptance in our schools. The importance of being acknowledged for who they are and for seeing themselves represented in the curricula, in books, in the faces of the staff who work with them, and in their day-to-day experience. Here's how we appreciate this for our family. We moved to Bloomington in 1990 specifically because of the excellent schools, and most importantly, because of the reputation Bloomington had for being inclusive. Our younger daughter, who has a physical disability, attended Oak Grove Intermediate, right here, Bravo, and graduated from Kennedy. Well, we had to fight for inclusion in our previous districts. Bloomington, with the support of 287, presented the full range of inclusion to her without question. So she experienced a feeling of belonging and acceptance from the top down, starting with the principal, the teachers, and deepening into the friendships she made. Most importantly, her identity was shaped by learning who she was and for understanding how she fits into a community. She and her older sister thrived here and have gone on to successful careers and fulfilling lives. It is vital for all kids to have a school environment where they experience belonging and are seen for their whole self, where the barriers they may face due to a perceived difference are knocked down so they can thrive to their fullest potential. The need to belong applies to all students, not just those with physical disabilities like our daughter, but to all GLBT youth from refugee and immigrant populations, youth who experience trauma, regular old youth, youth with alternative family structures, to all youth. Thank you so much.
So, Sarah Steinbach, if you could line up at this microphone, please. Next is Alan Redding.
Good evening. My name is Alan Redding. My wife and I have been residents of Bloomington for nearly 25 years, with our 3 sons attending Bloomington Public Schools at all levels, including special education. To date, the board has heard a number of pearl-clutching narratives about book challenges, that removing just a single book will usher in the dawn of a new Third Reich. However, back in 2018, the Duluth School District removed the well-established classics To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from its curriculum. It was certainly a controversial action, due in large part by the district blatantly ignoring its own policies. Although these books were left on library shelves, both local and national critics still persisted with dishonest public screeds about book banning. Controversy aside, it appears democracy did not die that day. Maybe the reason is this. The Duluth move was supported by the NAACP, with president of the local chapter, Stephen Witherspoon, saying the books were just hurtful and used hurtful language that has oppressed the people for over 200 years. Witherspoon continues, "It's wrong. There are a lot more authors out there with better literature that can do the same thing that does not degrade our people. Let's move forward and work together to make school work for all of our kids, not just some, all of them." And that is why we and other concerned parents are standing up and showing up. Our kids have identities steeped in their faith, morals, purpose, and calling. It's not fair to our kids that they have to endure the constant barrage of messaging and material in the school environment that runs counter to their values. This is far beyond making our kids feel uncomfortable. It is disrespectful, it is degrading, which is a clear violation of district policies. We have a responsibility to speak up on behalf of kids and families that are too often intimidated and marginalized on these controversial topics. That includes Muslim, Jewish, and immigrant families, and the growing numbers in the LGBTQIA2+ community that are fed up with using sexually explicit material to teach gender issues. Just like Duluth was searching for a better way to teach controversial topics, Bloomington schools can also do better and keep its focus on developing diversity of thought and viewpoint equity to align with district policies on neutrality.
Andrew Sewell, you're going to line up at this microphone. Sarah Steinbach, go ahead.
Thank you. Members of this board have spoken about how our schools need to be a safe place for all children. Yet weeks have gone by since this board sat and listened to the sexually explicit content read at the listening session, and I would like to know what attempts have been made to enforce the board's own school policy to protect the well-being of the children. This board tells concerned parents to follow policy, but has the board required the schools to retain the identified materials or place them aside until the review process has been fully completed, like in 606.1? Did the board ensure that the distribution of non-curricular materials to the school libraries were reviewed by administration to prohibit indecent content that is not age appropriate, like in 904.1? The board speaks to the safety of children, however, there is failure to enforce policy and/or laws that have already established that this type of indecent speech is harmful to minors, and access to this speech should be regulated to protect minors from it. Minnesota Statute 617.291 is a law to which we must abide, and the Bloomington staff, teachers, and school board are not above the law, and the law states that sexually explicit materials are harmful to minors. This issue in front of the board is about sexually explicit and age-appropriate content that is available without restrictions in our schools, other issues of content and themes that are being used to distract, divide, cover the truth, and falsely excuse concerned parents of hate. But parents asking for sexually explicit content to be removed from the library want to protect their children and their innocence. Sexually explicit books available in our school libraries undermines parental guidance and awareness and creates a harmful and unsafe environment for the children. Having this harmful material available without restrictions or parental approval does not create a safe school for all children. Thank you.
Melissa Rock, you are next at this microphone, and then Andrew Thule.
Hello, my name is Andrew Thule. I wanted to talk about sexually explicit materials on the wall at Kennedy High School. My daughter is actually special needs. She's autistic, and this goes back even into middle school. We found that my daughter takes aversion to LGBTQ being displayed on shirts. This year, my daughter had a teacher that had protect LGBTQ children on her personal meeting. Also, there's a sign on the wall that says, all are welcome. My daughter did the research, right, Kayla? And two of the hearts, one is an LGBTQ heart, the other one is actually a transgender heart. I had no idea these hearts were as so, right? But this looks like a gender push by the Bloomington Public Schools. Doesn't really belong on the walls in her social emotional learning class, right? Recently, another sign came up, bisexual, is that right, Kevin? Bi? So another sign came up on the wall, bi, right? So we met with the assistant principal of Kennedy High School, and we said, how about inclusivity, right? Can we put a straight pride sign on the wall? We were denied that opportunity by the assistant principal, both in writing. We did a Zoom meeting with the folks at the school. This is not inclusivity. Inclusivity would be allowing somebody who happens to be heterosexual. So my daughter has to sit and she has to look at these images day after day on these. Now Dr. Melby also has an email from Eagle Ridge Academy. They actually pursued legal on this very thing, and they actually disallowed teachers from actually putting this on the wall. So he has that in his email personally, right? So other districts, such as Eagle Ridge Academy, have actually pulled down this stuff on the wall. We need to get back to reading, writing, and math, and I happen to be a 27-year technical educator. This stuff doesn't belong on the walls. We need to focus on content and curriculum. This is actually affecting my daughter.
Mr. Rosol, your time is up. Thank you.
You guys can do better.
Sharon Billings, you will be at this microphone. Melissa Rock, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melissa Rock, and I've lived in Bloomington for 21 years, and I have a junior at Jefferson. I know that everyone in this room wants the best for the children of our school district. I put my child in Bloomington Public Schools specifically to ensure that she had exposure to a wide variety of cultures, beliefs, and values. We all know that there are books that some people find essential and other people find objectionable, and that's okay. Because as the Bloomington School District policy on this matter says, free discussion is the heart of the democratic process. Speaking of democracy, courts throughout the country, including the U.S. Supreme Court, have consistently reaffirmed the right for schools to provide access to controversial books. In the case of Island Tree School District versus Pico, the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment protects the availability of controversial books in public school libraries. The Supreme Court said, local school boards may not remove books from the school library shelves simply because they don't like the ideas contained in those books. There are dozens of similar other cases that came to the same conclusion. The truth is that all kids will come across objectionable material eventually. Part of growing up is learning critical thinking skills to form their opinions about sensitive topics. I would much rather have a student read age-appropriate materials on sensitive topics curated by professional librarians and educators than have that student look for the similar content on the internet. As a public school district, the Bloomington School Board needs to protect the rights of students with many different kinds of values. If we start removing books, whose values are we using to measure those? How do we measure acceptable levels of controversy? Exposure to disparate beliefs and values makes our children more well-rounded people and informed citizens. Removing controversial books could set the district up for a lawsuit and would be a huge disservice to our kids.
Christine Nelson? No? Okay, then Abigail Clevin-Schmitz, you're going to be next on the microphone A. Sharon Billings, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Sharon Billings, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the petition for immediate removal of sexually explicit materials in ISD 271. My family relocated to Bloomington in 1959 based on our reputation for excellent public schools. I was a student in Bloomington's public schools from the first grade through high school graduation in 1971. I was an avid reader who regularly brought home library books. I am a proud and grateful recipient of a BPS education. But as great as my mid-century BPS experience was, the best in its day, I know now, all these years later, that many of our classmates didn't have the same great experience that I did. And one reason for this is that they didn't have the opportunity, as I did, to see themselves represented in materials available to them in that same library. I believe that if there is something with which you disagree to bring about any change, you work within the system. So when I learned of this petition, I wanted to know, how does the system work? In preparation for speaking with you tonight, I contacted the Executive Director of Technology and Information Services. I asked him to help me understand how the system works, how are books selected for the library. In his reply, he provided a link to the Media Center FAQ document, which answered all my questions. I loved this line from its mission statement, quote, "Our collections represent the broad range of human thought and experience in all our students, staff, and community," close quote. I learned about the criteria for Media Center collection development. I was heartened to see what a thoughtful and inclusive system is in place for today's students, and I want to thank you for that. And I learned about the process for requesting that a book be removed from the school's Media Center, School Board Policy 606.1. So, to the petitioners, I say, if you object to a book that's currently in a BPS library, by all means, work within the system to follow the process that's already in place. But I hope and trust that at the end of the day, the BPS libraries will continue to offer materials for all its students.
Abigail Cleveland-Schmitz, go ahead.
Members of the school board, Madam Chair, my name is Abigail Cleveland-Schmitz and I'm a senior at Kennedy High School. I am a leader of Kennedy High School's Gender Sexuality Alliance, as well as a member of Right to Read. I am here to speak not only for myself, but on behalf of those at Kennedy who are not able or not comfortable speaking on the topic of literary restriction. It is common among queer people, queer youth especially, to feel broken when we realize we are different from those we watch, interact with, and are read to or read about. New York Times found that most children begin to have crushes at 5 to 6 years old. Transgender people are usually aware of feelings they can later identify as gender dysphoria by age 5. Restricting access to queer, especially trans literature in elementary schools is synonymous with making a 5-year-old feel fundamentally flawed. High and middle school libraries are also a vital resource for all students. These years are when our teenage bodies and minds start changing, when we have new and complex feelings. Literature gives teenagers and young adults opportunities to learn lessons, to find representation, to know what we are going through is not wrong or abnormal. Additionally, we need these books in school libraries because there are many people who do not have access to public libraries, and groups wishing to restrict school libraries are also targeting public ones. Not only does literature create opportunities for representation, but gives everyone opportunities for empathy. Humans fear what we do not understand. Literature helps us gain a sense of understanding through showing us the experience of others. Literary diversity is vital to ending the cycle of closed-mindedness, to cultivating a generation of people who value diversity, inclusivity, and love.
Anita Smith, then go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, school board and administration. My name is Anita Smithson, and I have 3 children, 2 that attend Olson Elementary, and a 5-year-old who cried this morning that he can't get on the school bus to go to kindergarten because his birthday was yesterday. So he's ready. He's ready for you. We are here today, all of us, because we care about young people. However, we in this room do not all agree on how best to take care of and protect young people. We know through Minnesota student survey data, research from the Trevor Project, GLAAD, and other organizations that students who identify as LGBTQIA+ are more likely to have mental health challenges or consider suicide. This isn't because they're a member of the queer community, though. It is because they do not always have people in their lives who are supportive, and they occasionally hear messages from adults, like some of the people in this room, that call their community names, put them down, or try to remove books about their community from the library. I'm here today to speak out against book bans. I believe they're un-American, they're the opposite of freedom, and I know that they are harmful. The last time I spoke before you, I shared more reasons why I do not support banning books. More than that, though, I'm here because I am for our young people who deserve the truth in all aspects of life. I'm here because when I was a young person, I needed to see a vibrant queer community that didn't exist in the way that it exists now. I'm here because there are a lot of students who are being hurt by these conversations and by the desired outcome of a small minority of community members. I want young people to know they're loved, they are perfect just the way they are, and we will stand up with you and for you to make sure you're loved and supported in your school. We will continue to show up to build the community you deserve, where you can be free to learn, free to read, free to be yourself, to be accepted and celebrated. Our future is bright because of you, and we will not let anyone steal that light. You matter, and your stories matter, and we see you. Thank you.
Danielle Indivigo-Colley, go ahead.
Thank you so much for letting me speak again this month. My name is Danny Indivino-Colley. I have 2 children who attend preschool at Pond and also get special education services. We've been a part of this district since my oldest child was 6 months old. For the past 2 months, we've been having a robust conversation around the books, mostly fiction, that are in school libraries and classrooms. And while we've been very focused on the books in the high school and for teens, we have not spoken much about the picture books in our elementary schools that are also being challenged. I believe that it is intentional to read excerpts depicting graphic or sexual content and then equate it with the story of transgender kids, and I'm talking about like 5 and 6-year-olds. I think that all of the picture books on this list presented in the original petition are written from the point of view of a trans child. From I Am Max, which has an age-appropriate definition of transgender, to When Aiden Became a Brother, which addresses the anxiety a child has about meeting their new sibling and mistakes they may make as a result. These books address real-life stories about real children like them and their friends. Kai Lukoff, the author of the books I just mentioned, is a trans man and said in an article in Harper's Bazaar that gender is how you move through the world, how you see yourself through other people seeing you, and what other people expect from you or demand of you or decide about you. And for that reason, I think it is extremely important to discuss gender with children. They will and do have trans classmates and family members. Mine do have both of those. And it's not indoctrination to reflect the real lives of children back to themselves so they can better understand the complexities of the world they live in. We read these books in my home and we discuss gender in detail. And if you know me, you know that I'm not extremely feminine. I don't even own makeup. But my daughter, she only dresses in dresses that are like brightly colored. The idea of pants is offensive to her. She will not wear them. She's 5 and asks to wear makeup and like only has things in tulle. And anyway, what I was gonna say is that I wanted to push back against that, but I didn't because that's her gender. And
Thank you. Thank you. Rickensrud, I'm going to say that incorrectly. Sorry, my apologies. You're going to be at microphone A. Danielle Robertson, go ahead.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Kind of short. All right. Hey, everybody. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. My name is Danielle Robertson. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Minnesota. But for the past 3 years, I've been a stay-at-home mom to one preschooler here in the district of Bloomington. I'm also a member of the Bloomington Early Learning Advisory Council, but tonight I'm speaking on my own behalf as a parent and as a proud bisexual woman. That wasn't added until just now. I thought it was relevant to let everybody know. So, after attending the last listening session and hearing the details of previous meetings and the petition people are putting forth, I thought it was really important to come here and make a couple points. Number one, so some of my neighbors here tonight and across the community are really concerned about sexual or harmful content in books that are available to kids. Okay, I understand that. Everyone wants to raise their kids as they see fit. Personally, I'm confident enough in my relationship with my children and my parenting that if they were to come across something that disturbed or frightened them, confused them, made them feel upset, that they would feel safe to come to me, talk to me about it, and we could discuss whatever it was. Just like if they were exposed to something on the school bus, on the internet, at a friend's house, right? Part of being a good parent is being able to guide my kid through uncomfortable situations. So it's on me to make sure that I'm involved enough in their life and that they feel safe and comfortable talking to me rather than just trying to take those books away from other kids because I don't like it. Lots of situations in life will come up and it's my job to make sure I've prepared my kid for what they might encounter and support them through it. It's not the librarian's job to parent my kid. Which leads me to my second point. After listening to that last session and hearing that all the people have started a petition to remove all these books from schools, it's my understanding that Minnesota not only does have a statute in place already to guide what is appropriate, not appropriate, and harmful or not harmful to children, but also that Bloomington Public Schools does as well. I don't want my tax dollars spent on anything redundant.
Danielle, your time is up. Thank you. Kate Bozen, you will be at microphone B. Nora Rickensrud.
That's correct, actually.
Thank you. You're up.
Hello, my name is Nora Rickensrud. I'm a senior at Kennedy High School and a co-founder of Bloomington Freedom to Read. We have noticed that Moms for Liberty is highly concerned that books in our high school libraries, quote, validate pedophilia, incest, sexual sadism, and gender confusion, end quote. I implore these concerned parents to reorient their perspective on books that cover difficult and even deplorable topics like sexual abuse. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1 in 9 women were victims of sexual abuse as children. That's more than the percentage of women with blue eyes. According to the CDC, over half of women and a third of men experience sexual violence over the course of their lifetime. Sexual abuse is an enormous issue, which is precisely why we must defend literature that covers these topics at all costs. To center a thoughtful, sensitive discussion of sexual violence within a classroom is to protect youth and victims. To remove all access to content containing sexual violence is to protect abusers. No one is easier to manipulate than those who are uninformed. These books do not glorify pedophilia and incest, but they do acknowledge that these things exist, which unfortunately is true. Please, ask yourself who you're trying to protect. Lastly, I'd like to address how within this petition, gender confusion, i.e. any LGBTQIA plus experiences, are being deeply conflated with abhorrent violations of human rights, like rape. This perpetuates the volatile idea that sex and relationships amongst people of the same gender, or involving people who don't conform to your perception of gender, is the same as sexual violence. Not only is this a thinly veiled display of homophobia and transphobia, but it muddies the water for those who are actually victims of abuse, the very demographic writers of this petition claim to protect. Thank you.
Johnny Kerwin, you will be at microphone A. And I'm just going to ask speakers, make sure you're talking really close to the microphone so we don't have the feedback from the back of the room. Kate Bovin, you are up.
Before I say my name, or who I speak on behalf of, my speaking here this evening was something that I was not sure of. My being open about myself and who I am is something that I was urged against by my parents. And in truth, Mom and Dad, I'm nervous too. Yet, something in my soul compels me to be here today. My name is Kate Bovin. I attend Kennedy High School, and I speak on behalf of myself as a co-founder of Bloomington Freedom to Read. I was once referred to the words of a woman named Deidre McCloskey by a close friend of mine in a discussion about writing. She said, "New words imply new thoughts. Word thought is a part of thinking." Since attending last month's meeting, I think about this often. One thing I've always lacked was words. I did not have words to describe my experience. I did not know why I felt shame about who I was and the feelings I had. Why every minute from when I became conscious of myself felt like I was living out a horror movie. My body slipping away into flesh I controlled but did not live in. And though I am happier now, though I have found myself and realized who I am, I still sometimes find myself awake at night, fantasizing if, had I had those words that these books can provide for generations of young people like me, had I had them, how differently things could have turned out, how I could have spared myself from so much pain. Now, these words are here. They're in our libraries. They can be read. New words can be had by this generation. Thinking that I could never have done at their age is possible for them, and I should be happy. Instead, I weep. I see people to try to have access to these words be stripped from kids like me, to see them possibly be put through what I had to go to at no fault of their own, but because people hate them, because they hate people like me. I am begging, do not fail these children like this world has failed me. Please.
Thank you. Shay Ross, you will be at microphone B. Johnny Kerwin, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Johnny Kerwin, a senior at Jefferson, and I speak as a co-founder of Bloomington Freedom to Read. Those in favor of banning books from our public libraries repeatedly maintain the idea that LGBTQ+ literature and representation will turn their children gay. They pretend that their only concern is to remove sexual content from our libraries, but fail to admit that queerness is sexual in their minds. I'm here to tell you that nothing can turn somebody gay. I have 2 mothers who have been together for more than 20 years and who have raised 2 children together. It would be difficult to find someone who has been exposed to more queerness than me. I went to their wedding, I have seen them buy a home together, and I watched them kiss each other goodbye every morning. I stand here speaking as somebody who is completely confident in my straightness. I still present the stereotypical straight high school boy attributes that book banners are scared to lose. I have played multiple varsity sports and have been dating my girlfriend for nearly 2 years. This shows that my proximity to queer people has in no way impacted my sexuality or gender expression, but it has taught me empathy. Empathy which has led me to be here today with the hopes of protecting queer students who have not been turned gay but are gay and deserve your respect as such. 40%. That is the percent of students of transgender people who indicated that they have attempted suicide at some point in their lives on the United States Transgender Survey. Also indicated is that over 80% of transgender people have seriously considered suicide. 63% of queer students experience daily depression, and only 2/3 of queer students graduate from high school. All of these numbers are extremely inflated compared to the general population. With numbers this astronomically high, transgender and queer people should be a priority in terms of inclusion and healthcare. Taking a group with such extreme suicidal tendencies due to systematic discrimination and exclusion, and discriminating against and excluding them more, is only going to raise the numbers. We cannot go through with this petition. A diverse selection of books is the only way to protect queer students of our communities. Banning books is an extreme measure, and if it goes through in Bloomington, it will be the biggest mistake of my time here as a student, with the worst consequences to show for it. Thank you.
Did I forget to call up Lily Mortensen? I am so sorry, Lily. Okay. Oh no, I'm right. Shay, you're okay. My check marks are off. Okay, so Shay, you're ready to go, and then Lily, you're at this microphone. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shay, but some know me as Shane. I'm speaking as a senior at Jefferson High School who has been attending Bloomington schools for 13 years. I'm speaking as a BPS early childhood staff who is currently working at Westwood during my second year with Kids Safari. I'm speaking as a co-founder of Bloomington Freedom to Read, and most importantly, I'm speaking as a queer person. Growing up queer is a uniquely alienating experience. At Ridgeview Elementary School, my every behavior was subject to criticism from my peers. My painted nails and speaking cadence were grounds for humiliation. I was belittled and harassed in Olson Middle School locker rooms. I was asked invasive sexual questions, and because of that, I was forced to learn how to hide myself from an early age. Books in the school library that dealt with queer issues were hard to come by, but my earliest memories of reading about my community filled me with hope in regards to my future. The notion of gay and transgender adults, relationships, and livelihoods was one that was new to me, and it's one that was important. It's why I saw myself living past high school for the first time. It's how I met people who understood people like me. LGBTQ+ books in libraries have never turned somebody gay, including the 10 elementary and middle school books that Moms for Liberty is trying to ban, none of which include graphic sexual content, but all 10 of which have transgender main characters. These books, however, have saved the lives of gay and trans people who have been taught nothing but shame, who feel unsafe, alone, and betrayed in their home and school environments. We're not free of homophobic and transphobic violence. I was forced to leave my homecoming football game early Friday night when the guy next to me repeatedly shoved my friend and I after complaining about faggots. I know things have improved in my community, but I want them to continue to do so. Because as someone who works with children, I care about the next generation of queer kids. Not because I want to turn the kids gay, but because some kids already are, and it's up to us to save them. Let me be clear. Restricting access to LGBT materials will isolate, alienate, and hurt these children. At the last listening session, we heard community member Danae Black speak for the petition, and in her speech, she demanded that we protect the most vulnerable children. I concur. Please, board members, protect LGBTQ children.
Benjamin Ross? Is Benjamin Ross here? Okay, thank you. So Christine Seitz, you will be at microphone B. Lily Mortensen, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. My name is Lily Mortensen, and I'm a senior at Kennedy High School and co-founder of Freedom to Read. Though Moms for Liberty's proposed bans have consistently targeted queer and Black literature, I want to emphasize that this is not just a queer issue, and this is not just a race issue. Book bannings are beyond deeply discriminatory. They're a blatant violation of our First Amendment right to freely publish, read, and view all ideas and information. Book bannings contradict the fundamental tenets of the Constitution and threaten all of our rights as citizens. As mentioned earlier, in 1982, students of the Island Tree School District in New York sued their school board for banning, quote, anti-Christian books from school libraries. The Supreme Court ruled against the board, deeming the book bans unconstitutional. The court held that, quote, The right to receive ideas is a necessary predicate to the recipient's meaningful exercise of his own rights of speech, press, and political freedom. Historically, book bans have been imposed by authoritarian governments in an attempt to eliminate all diversity of thought and political opposition. Think of the Nazi book burnings. Think of the foreign literature bans in North Korea. Censorship has never been about protecting children. It is about controlling the narrative and suppressing minority voices. But even if you are not a minority, even if your voice is not the one being silenced, it is still your duty to act on this matter. Because if we let these bans happen, we open the door for future restrictions on books about feminism, climate change, sexual education, and truthful U.S. history. Because removing books from our schools is unequivocally un-American. Because if we allow the banning of these books, we are allowing fascist censorship in our schools. Make the right choice.
Thank you. Lindsay DeRossier. You're going to be at microphone A. Thank you. Chris Seitz, go ahead.
I'm Christine Seitz, Bloomington resident. The elementary books on the petition have been identified due to the topic of sexuality at inappropriate ages. Kindergarten books label children as transgender and quickly escalate to discuss puberty blockers, breast binding, gender surgeries, and how to hide web searches from parents by second grade. A few studies, if any, have been conducted on minors and transitioning. As educators, you cannot in good conscience promote these ideologies. Minors do not have the maturity to fully process how this often has painful, lifelong physical effects. So this is not a matter of children having the right to choose a book, as some suggest. The books are the tip of the iceberg. Gender and sexuality are promoted constantly throughout students' days with displays, posters, events, and even emphasized on the clothes that staff wear. Staff are over-affirming and giving special privileges to students in the Gender and Sexuality Alliance clubs that are permeating the schools. It is no coincidence that biological girls transitioning has risen by 4,500% and is now considered a social contagion. Policies too are broken regarding GSA clubs. Inappropriate relations, social media use with students. Clubs are teacher-led, not student-led. Purchasing of GSA promotional items with school and taxpayer money. GSA advisors also bring outside resources in to talk to students about camps, gender identity, transitioning, and have had students take sexuality surveys. All of this usurps parental rights and lacks consent. This is not a matter of hate. We don't hate any children. We love them enough to stand against the dangerous rhetoric. It is about students being inundated with this harmful agenda and transparency with parents. The superintendent and the board have been notified multiple times about concerns and have done nothing that we're aware of because we don't get any feedback. So what we need are board members who will put children first above all political agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. John Peters, you will be at microphone B. Lindsay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lindsay DeRossier. I'm a Bloomington resident. We're not trying to raise our children to keep secrets. Secrets turn into shame and guilt. It is our responsibility as parents to sit with and really hear our children. When these books endorse problematic sexual behaviors such as rape, incest, and pedophilia, children may be less inclined to share this with people who love them. It is beautiful to have healthy attachments and openness with our children, for them to be able to speak candidly, and it is our obligation to teach and guide our children on topics surrounding sex and sexuality. I believe that the people present in this room probably have a pretty great attachment to their children. You offer stability and advice in ways that a majority of children may not have. It is offensive for others to say that we marginalize children who are exploring who they are. When you get so stuck on one agenda, you begin to lose the concept that not all children get to have healthy attachments to a caregiver. Children who may be exposed to explicit content may not have safe spaces to process what they've read. Often, they're encouraged to read these books to fit in or to learn more about themselves and their friends. Sometimes they're shown images without giving consent, and they're not developmentally ready to receive or process the information. Naturally, LGBTQIA+ culture celebrates desire and pleasure. These rights are hard-fought and should be acknowledged, but do not place adult desires on children. Discussing pleasure without consequences is a setup for increased depression, anxiety, shame, self-harm, suicide, and more. True consent means understanding the ramifications of our behaviors. That includes recognizing that they will increase the risk of disease, some will increase the risk of cancer, etc. Many of these books glamorize sex and sexuality, and at the very least, minimize the risks. Others infantilize problematic sexual behaviors. They're just not age appropriate. Please stop using misinformation and language manipulation to indicate that we are hateful or want to ban books. All children need to be protected, not just children, but including your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie Freet, my apologies. So John's going to go next, then Marie, and that will be the end of our listening session. We do have some conclusions, so stick around until after the last two speakers are done. Go ahead, John.
Hello, my name is John Peters. Currently, my wife and I have 2 kids in Bloomington Public Schools, one at Olson Middle and one at Olson Elementary. Since we first brought the issue of sexually explicit materials to the board's attention in August, we have followed District Procedure Policy 606.1 at the superintendent's direction. Forms have been submitted regarding the materials in question, and meetings have taken place at the high school, middle school, and elementary school levels. As per that policy, the materials in question should be pulled from the school libraries while they are under review. We expect that the review process is conducted in a timely manner and that representatives from the schools and school district communicate consistently and clearly as to how the process is being conducted. If that is not happening, the superintendent and the board should intervene to ensure the review process is being followed correctly as per policy 606.1. To reiterate previous points, we are not seeking to, quote, ban books. An adult can still access these materials in a bookstore, Amazon, or the adult section in a public library. This is about making sure that books available in the school libraries and classrooms are age appropriate and do not contain sexually explicit material. Most of the students in Bloomington Public School are minors. There are legal limitations on what sort of media that minors can access. R-rated movies, Playboy magazine, or an adult bookstore, for example. If you can't read a book on the radio or show the pictures on television because it is too sexually explicit, then it does not belong in the school library or the classroom. The job of our schools is to educate our children in the areas of reading, writing, math, science, civics, and so forth. It is not to expose them to sexually explicit material, endorse or promote various sexual behaviors or ideologies, or to lie to them by saying that you can change your gender, which is contrary to basic biology and common sense. We all love our kids, and we want what's best for them. I don't feel it should be a partisan issue. We simply want what is available in the schools, as well as what is being taught and promoted, to be age appropriate and focused on academic proficiency. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love science.
Go ahead. Go ahead and grab it so that it's fine. We'll break it. There we go.
All right. Good evening. My name is Marie. I'm a wife, an aunt, a Gen Zer, and a cousin to 19 kids at or below the age of an 8th grader, all living here in Bloomington. I'm an avid podcast listener, news junkie, and researcher, and a local of Bloomington for my entire life. Sexually explicit books do not belong in the tax dollar-funded public education system, and let me dig into this claim. Sexually explicit. Arguments for access to these books claim that these scenes in these books are being taken out of context, are culturally relevant and educational, and provide kids with comfort in thoughts and emotions that they might have. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection sums up my perspective. This material can lead a child to normalize and become desensitized to high-risk behavior, shape a child's expectations in relationships, shape a child's expectations of physical appearances and certain sexual acts, and blur boundaries and increase a child's risk of victimization. Secondly, the public education system. The purpose of public education is to provide a free education to all the children in the country. It is focused on the ideas of core content knowledge, citizenship, and the skills necessary for young people to be successful when they become adults. This content is not core content knowledge, nor will it set the trajectory for young people to be successful adults. So why are we pushing and paying for this type of material to be permitted in the public education system? There is a philosophy of education which holds that the student ought to be allowed to assemble his own curriculum to his preferences. Few students have strong basis for making these choices, not knowing how little they know. Ideas of what they need to learn are not greatly limited, but greatly distorted. What they need is help from those who know more than they do. Keeping books with inappropriate content out of libraries protects kids, but doesn't stop people from reading those books or prevent authors from writing them. representatives of Bloomington schools, please take a moment to consider the irreversible impact your decisions have on the future of our children.
Okay, that concludes our listening session. I once again want to thank everyone for being respectful to the speakers this evening. And as I stated in the introduction, there were 10 speakers on my list that we did not get to tonight. If you would like the opportunity to speak at our November meeting, and we'll put you at the beginning of the list, you must check in with me today, right after this session is over, before we, as a board, have to go over across the hall for our study session. If you don't check in with me, then you won't be on the November list unless you re-register yourselves, okay? All right, and then a reminder, you can always email the board at schoolboard@isd271.org. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Melby, and then I've got some concluding thoughts.
Thanks, Chair Starks. Feedback. As I've stated in the last couple of listening sessions, and it was clearly referenced tonight, folks know that 606.1 is a policy that the board has that deals with procedures for handling question materials and controversial issues in curriculum instruction. So as Mr. Peters referenced, some citizens and parents have used that policy and the form, and we are working through that policy. During the review process, the book will be checked out so that the committee members can read it. When not checked out by committee members, or the committee members, I'm sorry, the book will remain in circulation, and we'll work our way through the process. Wanted to clarify that for folks. That's my update.
And then I have two clarifications on points that I think will help the community understand the board's role. So in regards to 606.1, there are 4 steps in the process, and the school board is the last step. There's no guarantee that any of the current 606.1 challenges in place will reach that level, or if they do, at what time that may occur. The other thing is in regards to listening sessions, the board offers a time for Bloomington Public Schools parents and caregivers, students, staff, and Bloomington residents to address the board on the second Monday of the month. The board does not set the topic. The topics are chosen by those that register to speak. Topics addressed at listening sessions do not inherently become agenda items at study sessions or business meetings unless board action is required. And administration does follow up with topics addressed should they deem necessary. So I wanted to make those 2 clarifications this evening. Again, I thank you for attending. Very, very appreciative of your respectfulness to everyone in the audience and to our speakers, and we hope you have a good evening. Thank you.